The shuttle dropped like a stone through clouds that glowed purple with toxic spores. Doctor Nadia Okonkwo gripped her seat harness and watched the warning lights flash red across every panel. The pilot, a young Celian with gray scales and panic in his 4 eyes, screamed something about engine failure. Then the trees came up fast through the viewport, and everything went dark. She woke to silence and pain. Her left arm hung at a wrong angle. Blood dripped from a cut above her eye. The shuttle lay crumpled around her like a crushed aluminum can, half buried in soil that pulsed with soft blue light. The pilot was dead. She checked twice to be sure. His neck had snapped on impact. Nadia pulled herself free from the wreckage and stood on shaking legs in the middle of the Thornwood. Every Federation scientist knew about this place. The southern jungles of Dravones, for it claimed more lives than any other ecosystem in the explored galaxy. The trees grew 200 meters tall with bark that secreted paralytic toxins. The air carried spores that dissolved lung tissue within hours. And the predators, creatures called wren stalkers, hunted in packs of 12 and could track prey across 50 kilometers by sensing the electrical signals of a beating heart. One survived the Thornwood. This was not opinion. This was documented fact across 300 years of Federation records. Nadia looked at her emergency pack. 3 days of rations, a water purifier, a plasma cutter with 12% charge, a basic medical kit point, 3 days of supplies in a place where 3 hours was considered generous. She started walking. Back at the research outpost, alarms went off within the hour. Dr. Paleth, a Dravoni scientist with leathery brown skin and eyes like polished obsidian, was the first to reach the communications array. Her beacon stopped transmitting, the technician reported. Last known position was deep in Sector 7. Paleth felt his throat tighten. Sector 7 was the heart of the Thornwood. Send search drones immediately. Sir, protocol states. I know what protocol states. Send them anyway. 3 drones launched within 20 minutes. The first was destroyed by a territorial wren stalker pack before it traveled 2 kilometers. The second flew into a spore cloud, and its sensors corroded within seconds. The third managed to reach the crash site and transmitted footage of a ruined shuttle, an empty seat harness, and tracks leading into the jungle. Then something with too many legs pulled it from the sky. The Federation declared Nadia legally dead 72 hours later. This was standard procedure. The Thornwood did not return its victims. Paleth refused to sign the death certificate. He had worked with Nadia for 3 years. He had watched her study creatures that made other scientists run. He had seen her handle venomous specimens with steady hands and calm eyes. If anyone could survive the impossible, it was her, but days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. The outpost continued its research at the jungle's safe edges, and Nadia's quarters were eventually cleared out and reassigned. 8 months passed. Then the sensor alert came that a deep-range thermal scanner, positioned to monitor wren stalker migration patterns, detected an anomaly. A heat signature was moving through the center of the Thornwood, traveling in straight lines between defensible positions, resting during peak predator activity hours, and moving again when the jungle grew quiet. The signature matched human biological markers. Paleth ran the data 7 times. He called in specialists who ran it 7 more. Every analysis returned the same result. Something human was alive in the heart of the Thornwood, and it was moving east toward the ridge where the jungle ended and the rocky highlands began. This is impossible, Admiral Rix Torvin said when Paleth brought him the findings. The old Celian officer had commanded this sector for 40 years. He had signed more death certificates for Thornwood victims than he could count. No human survives 8 days in there, let alone 8 months. The data does not lie, Admiral. Then the data is wrong. It could be a lure. Some Thornwood predators mimic heat signatures to attract prey. Paleth placed another readout on the Admiral's desk. This was captured last night. The signature created a controlled fire. It burned for 6 hours in a defensive ring pattern, then was extinguished before dawn. Torvin stared at the thermal imaging. Fire. Deliberate, controlled fire. Animal on Dravones for used fire. No native species had ever developed that capability. One drone, Torvin said quietly. One reconnaissance pass along the projected path. If it gets destroyed, we mark this as another anomaly and move on. The drone launched at sunset. It flew low over the Thornwood canopy, sensors trained on the moving signature below. For 30 minutes, it captured only glimpses through the dense foliage. Movement, heat, the suggestion of a bipedal form. Then the figure stepped into a clearing. Paleth watched the footage in the command center with 12 other officers. No one spoke. No one breathed. A woman stood in the moonlight. Her left arm showed old scarring from a badly healed break. Her body was wrapped in armor made from the black carapace shells of dead wren stalkers. Mud covered her face in deliberate patterns. In her right hand, she carried a spear tipped with a curved claw that could only have come from an apex predator. She looked up at the drone. She did not run. She did not hide. She raised one hand in a gesture that might have been a wave. Then she turned and walked deeper into the jungle, moving with the calm confidence of someone who was not prey. She was something else entirely. 14 officers sat in the Federation Council chamber above Dravoni's 4. None of them had slept well since the drone footage arrived. Admiral Torvin played the recording for the 5th time that morning. The woman in predator armor. The confident walk. The wave. "We are certain this is Dr. Okonkwo," asked Counselor Vin, a thin Melloran with silver fur and a reputation for caution. Facial recognition confirms 94% match despite scarring and weight loss, Paleth replied. He stood at the front of the chamber, his dark eyes fixed on the frozen image. "It is her." 8 months, Vin said slowly. 8 months in a region where the average survival time is less than 8 hours. How is this possible? No one answered. No one could. Admiral Torvin leaned forward in his chair. His gray scales had faded with age, but his voice remained strong. The question before this council is simple. Do we authorize a rescue mission? Into the Thornwood. Another counselor laughed without humor. "Admiral, we have records of 14 rescue attempts into that region. 14. The survival rate across all missions is 0%. Not low. Thorough. I am aware of our history." "Then you know what you are asking. You want us to send soldiers into a guaranteed death zone to retrieve one human who may not even want to be retrieved." Paleth stepped forward. She waved at our drone. "She is clearly aware that we have found her. She is moving toward the eastern ridge, the only point where the Thornwood meets accessible terrain. She wants to be reached, or she wants to lure more prey to her territory," Counselor Vin said. "We do not know what 8 months in that environment has done to her mind. She built armor from predator shells. She uses fire defensively. She travels with purpose." Paleth kept his voice steady, though his heart pounded in his chest. "These are not the actions of a broken mind. These are the actions of someone who has adapted in ways we cannot imagine." The council fell silent. Admiral Torvin pulled up a new display. Thermal imaging showed the moving signature, but this time the analysts had enhanced the data. 3 additional heat sources traveled alongside the human. Large heat sources, moving in formation. "What are those?" Vin asked. "Wren stalkers," Torvin said. "Based on size and thermal output, we believe they are mature adults. They have been traveling with the human signature for at least 3 weeks." The silence in the chamber grew heavier. Wren stalkers did not travel with prey. They killed it. They did not form relationships with other species. They were apex predators, solitary except during mating season, territorial to the point of violence against their own kind, and 3 of them were following a human through the jungle like loyal hounds. "That is impossible," Counselor Vin said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Many things about this situation are impossible," Paleth replied, "and yet the evidence remains." Admiral Torvin stood. He was old, and his joints ached, and he had seen too many good soldiers die in that jungle to believe in miracles. But he had also learned, over 4 decades of service, that humans had a strange talent for surviving things that should kill them. "I will authorize one mission," he said. "Not a rescue. A contact team. For volunteers maximum. They will proceed to the eastern ridge and establish a secure position. If Dr. Okonkwo reaches them, they will assess her condition and offer extraction. If she does not arrive within 48 hours, they will withdraw. And if the Ren stalkers attack, then they will defend themselves and retreat. I will not order anyone to die for this, but I will give volunteers the chance to try. He looked around the chamber. Any objections? The counselors exchanged glances. None spoke. Good. Dr. Paleth, you will lead the contact team. Paleth nodded. He had expected this. He had hoped for it. Choose your volunteers carefully, Torvin added. And Paleth? If she is not the woman we knew, if that jungle has turned her into something else, you have authorization to leave her there. Some things cannot be brought back. Paleth thought of the woman he had worked beside for 3 years. The steady hands, the calm eyes, the quiet laugh she made when she found something fascinating in a specimen others found terrifying. I understand, Admiral, but he did not believe it. Whatever Nadia had become in that jungle, she was still in there. The wave had proven that. He just hoped she still wanted to come home. 3 days later, a small Federation dropship descended toward the eastern ridge of the Thornwood. Paleth sat in the cargo bay with his team. 2 Celian soldiers named Grath and Mora, and a human medic named Daniel Reyes. Reyes had volunteered within seconds of hearing the mission brief. He had never met Nadia, but he understood something the others did not. Humans do not give up, he told Paleth during the descent. We break, we bend, we lose pieces of ourselves, but we do not stop fighting. If she survived 8 months in that hell, she did not do it by accident. She did it because she refused to die. Paleth looked out the viewport at the approaching jungle. The trees glowed faintly in the twilight, beautiful and deadly. Then let us hope she still remembers how to live. The dropship touched down at the ridge's edge as darkness fell. The Thornwood stretched before them, vast and ancient and patient. Somewhere in those glowing depths, a woman was walking toward them, and she was not walking alone. The following account was reconstructed from audio logs recovered from Dr. Nadia Okonkwo's damaged suit recorder, Day 1. Her arm was broken in 2 places. She set it herself using a splint made from shuttle debris and strips torn from the pilot's uniform. She screamed once during the process, then bit through her lip to keep silent. Sound attracted predators, Day 3. The rations ran out. She found a fungus growing on a fallen tree that did not trigger her suit's toxicity scanner. She ate it raw and spent 6 hours vomiting. But she lived. Day 7. She lost 2 fingers to a plant with tendrils that moved faster than she could react. The pain was blinding, but as she treated the wounds, she noticed something strange. The sap from the tendril plant had coated her breathing mask, and for the first time since the crash, she could breathe without the filter burning her throat. The sap neutralized the spores. She began harvesting it deliberately. Day 12. She saw her first Ren stalker. It was the size of a ground transport, with 6 legs and a head like a nightmare made of teeth and sensory organs. It passed within 10 meters of her hiding spot and did not notice her. She watched it hunt. She watched it kill. She memorized every movement. Day 20. She understood now. The stalkers hunted by sensing electrical signals. Every living heart produced a faint charge. Every panicked heartbeat was a beacon screaming prey into the darkness. She needed to mask herself. Day 23. The river deposits saved her. Certain minerals in the water created a paste that blocked electrical signals when applied to skin. She coated herself head to toe and walked past a hunting pack. They looked directly at her. They did not attack. Day 31. She stopped running. Running meant prey. Prey died. She needed to become something else. Day 40. She made her first kill. A young stalker, separated from its pack, wounded by a territorial dispute. She drove her improvised spear through its eye while it slept. The other predators found the body the next morning. They did not investigate. In the Thornwood, death was common. Only the cause mattered, and her cause left no trace. Day 45. The carapace armor changed everything. Ren stalker shells were nearly indestructible. They deflected thorns, blocked toxic secretions, and most importantly, they carried the scent of apex predator. Smaller creatures fled from her. Larger ones hesitated. Day 60. She learned their language. Not words, but signals. Posture. Movement. Sound. A low clicking meant territorial warning. A high whistle meant hunting call. A specific pattern of steps meant submission. She practiced in secret until she could mimic them without thinking. Day 78. She found him, a juvenile wren stalker, barely a third the size of an adult, trapped in a tangle of razor vines. His pack had left him. In the Thornwood, weakness meant death, and the strong did not wait for the weak. Every survival instinct told her to walk away. He was a predator. He would grow into something that could kill her with one swipe. Helping him gained her nothing and risked everything. She cut him free anyway, he did not attack. He watched her with eyes that held something she recognized. Fear, confusion, loneliness. She cleaned his wounds with river water. She applied sap to the deeper cuts. She stayed with him through the night, keeping the fire burning to ward off scavengers. In the morning, he followed her, day 90. He was still following. She named him Ghost because he moved without sound. She taught him her hunting patterns. He taught her his. They killed together for the first time on day 93. She had never felt so alive, day 120. Two more joined them, outcasts like Ghost, pushed from their packs for weakness or injury. She healed them. She fed them. She led them. They did not see her as human. They did not see her as prey. They saw her as pack leader, strange and small, but fierce and clever. She had proven herself in the only way that mattered in the Thornwood. She had survived. Day 180. She began walking east. She did not know if anyone was looking for her. She did not know if the Federation had written her off as dead. But the Eastern Ridge was the only place where the jungle ended, and she needed to know if the outside world still existed. Her pack traveled with her. Ghost walked at her right side, grown now to nearly full size. The others flanked her, alert and protective. When hunting parties crossed their path, they moved aside. When territorial stalkers challenged them, her pack answered. She was not hiding anymore. She was not running. She moved through the Thornwood like she belonged there because she did. Day 240. She saw the drone IT hovered above a clearing, sensor scanning. Federation design. Someone was looking. She stepped into the open. She looked up at the machine, at the distant eyes watching through its cameras. She thought about everything she had lost. Her career, her colleagues, her old life. Then she thought about Ghost pressing against her leg in the cold nights. About the pack trusting her to lead them to food and safety. About the jungle that had tried to kill her and failed. She raised her hand. Not a surrender. Not a plea, not a greeting. Then she turned and walked back into the trees. The ridge was still 3 days away. Her pack was waiting. And for the first time in 8 months, she allowed herself to hope. The second night at the ridge was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel Reyes sat with his back against the supply crate, watching the treeling. The Thornwood glowed in the darkness, soft blues and purples pulsing through the canopy like a heartbeat. Beautiful, he thought. Absolutely beautiful. And absolutely deadly. Paleth paced near the dropship, checking his scanner every few minutes. The thermal signature had stopped moving 12 hours ago. It was close, perhaps 2 kilometers into the jungle, but it was not approaching. She is waiting, Grath said. The Celian soldier had served on Dravones for 6 years. He knew the jungle better than most who had never entered it. Testing us. Seeing if we will leave. We will not leave, Paleth replied. Then she will come. When she is ready. Morning came slow and gray. The spore clouds were thick today, drifting across the ridge in waves that the team's filters barely handled. Mora kept her weapon ready. Grath watched the trees with the patience of a predator himself. Daniel made coffee from the emergency supplies and tried not to think about what was watching them from the darkness. The movement came at midday. Mora saw it first. A shadow between the trees, too tall to be wildlife, moving with purpose. She raised her rifle. Contact. 50 meters. Single figure approaching. Everyone turned. Everyone held their breath. The figure stepped out of the jungle. Daniel had seen the drone footage. He thought he was prepared. He was wrong. Nadia Okonkwo looked like something from a fever dream. Her body was wrapped in black shell armor that caught the light like oil on water. Her face was painted with mineral mud and patterns that broke up her features, making her hard to focus on. Her hair had grown long and wild, tied back with vine. A spear rested in her right hand, tipped with a claw that curved like a sickle. But it was her eyes that stopped him. They were not the eyes of a victim. They were not the eyes of someone who had been lost. They were calm, watchful, and utterly in control. She looked at each of them in turn. Then she spoke, and her voice cracked from disuse. "Put the guns down. You are making them nervous." "Making who nervous?" Mora asked. Nadia tilted her head toward the trillion. 3 shapes emerged from the shadows. Honstolker. Each one was massive, easily 4 meters at the shoulder, with legs like tree trunks and heads full of teeth that could crush bone. They moved silently despite their size, spreading out to flank Nadia on both sides. Mora's rifle began to shake. Grath went very still. "They will not attack unless you threaten me," Nadia said. "Lower your weapons." "Now." Paleth stepped forward, hands empty and raised. "Nadia, it is me. Paleth, do you remember?" Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Memory. "Paleth." She said his name like she was tasting it, remembering how words worked. "You signed my research permits. You always complained about my handwriting. It was terrible handwriting. It still is." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Paleth smiled, and Nadia almost smiled back, and the tension in the air cracked like ice in spring. "We came to bring you home," Paleth said. "The dropship can take all of us. Medical teams are waiting in orbit. You can rest. You can heal. You can see Earth again." Nadia looked back at the jungle, at the 3 creatures waiting at the trillion. The largest one, the one she had saved as a juvenile, shifted his weight and made a low, clicking sound. "I cannot leave them. The stalkers." Daniel stepped closer. "Dr. Okonkwo, they are wild predators. They belong in the jungle. They belong with me." Her voice was quiet but certain. "I saved Ghost when his pack abandoned him. I healed the others when they were wounded. In the Thornwood, that creates a bond. They're my pack now. My family." "Nadia," Paleth said gently, "Wren stalkers cannot survive outside their native ecosystem. The ridge is already too dry for them. They would die within weeks anywhere else." She knew. Daniel could see it in her face. She had always known. "Then I'm staying." Silence fell. The wind carried spores across the ridge. One of the stalkers yawned, revealing rows of teeth longer than Daniel's forearm. 8 months, Morris said. "You survived 8 months in hell, and you want to go back?" Nadia turned to face her. "That hell is my home now. Those creatures are my family. I made them a promise when I saved them, even if I did not say it out loud. I will not break it." Paleth stepped closer, close enough that the stalkers tensed, close enough that Nadia could see his eyes, dark and old and sad. "Is there nothing we can offer you? Nothing that would bring you back?" Nadia considered. The jungle glowed behind her. Her pack waited, patient and loyal. "A radio," she said finally. "A long-range transmitter. I have learned things about this place that no Federation scientist has ever known. Migration patterns, mating cycles, safe passages, and deadly traps. I can share that knowledge if you want it." "In exchange for what?" She looked at her pack, at Ghost, who had followed her from death's door to something like life, at the others, who trusted her to keep them safe. "In exchange for you letting me stay." Paleth closed his eyes. This was not the rescue he had imagined. This was not the ending anyone had planned, but it was her choice. And after 8 months of survival that should have been impossible, she had earned the right to make it. "I will speak to the Admiral," he said. "I cannot promise anything." Nadia nodded. Then she turned and walked back toward the trillion. Ghost fell into step beside her. The others followed. And as she disappeared into the glowing darkness, Daniel Reyes understood something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. She was not a survivor. She was something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, a human who had looked at the impossible and made it home. Admiral Rix Torvin had not left his command station in 15 years for a field operation. Today he made an exception. His shuttle touched down on the eastern ridge as the sun began to set. Paleth waited for him with the contact team, all of them exhausted and quiet. Behind them, the Thornwood pulsed with its soft, deadly light. "Where is she?" Torvin asked. inside the tree waiting. She will not come out until she knows why you are here. The admiral looked at the jungle. Somewhere in that darkness, a human woman lived among monsters. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, he felt something closer to awe. Then I will go to her. Sir, the stalkers will not attack unless I threaten their leader. That is what you told me. Torvin straightened his uniform. His scales had faded with age, but he still remembered how to stand like a soldier. I have come too far to speak through messengers. Let her see me. Paleth led him to the edge of the trees. The glow from within cast strange shadows across the rocky ground. The air smelled like flowers in decay, sweet and wrong. Nadia, Okonkwo, Torvin called into the darkness. I am Admiral Rix Torvin, Federation Regional Command. I have come to speak with you, face to face. No weapons, no tricks. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then she emerged. She looked worse in person than she had in the footage. Thinner, harder. Her eyes had a distance to them, like she was seeing things no one else could see. But she moved with a grace that Torvin recognized from career soldiers, the kind of awareness that came from living with danger every moment. Behind her, 3 Ren stalkers arranged themselves like an honor guard. The largest one watched Torvin with eyes that held intelligence. Real intelligence. Understanding. Admiral, Nadia said. Her voice was stronger today, more practiced. You came a long way. You have caused quite a stir, Dr. Okonkwo. The council is divided on what to do with you. I do not need them to do anything with me. I just need them to leave me alone. Torvin studied her. The armor made from predator shells. The spear she held like an extension of her arm. The creatures that watched him with predatory calm. You understand what you are asking. The Federation cannot officially acknowledge that one of its citizens has chosen to live as a wild creature in an uncontrolled biome. There are protocols, procedures, protocols. Nadia's laugh was short and sharp. Your protocols declared me dead 8 months ago. Your procedures gave up on me after 72 hours. I survived without your protocols, Admiral. I can continue without them. And if we order you to return, you are welcome to try enforcing that order. The stalkers shifted behind her. Torvin noticed how they responded to the tension in her voice, reading her emotions the way trained soldiers read their commander. This woman had done something that should have been impossible. She had not just survived the Thornwood. She had conquered it. She had taken the most dangerous predators on the planet and turned them into a family. The Federation could not contain her. He knew that now. She was beyond their reach, beyond their authority, beyond anything they had planned for. I have a counteroffer, Torvin said. You asked for a radio. I can give you more than that. Full communication equipment. Regular supply drops. Official status as a Federation research consultant, with salary and benefits. Nadia tilted her head. In exchange for what? Your knowledge. Everything you have learned about this place. The safe passages, the predator behaviors, the survival techniques. We have lost more people to the Thornwood than any other hazard in this sector. If you can help us reduce those losses, even slightly, it would be worth more than I can say. She considered. Behind her, Ghost made a low clicking sound, and she reached back without looking to rest her hand on his massive head. And my pack, what about them? They stay with me. No hunting parties, no capture attempts, no scientific expeditions coming into our territory to study them. They are not specimens. They are family. Torvin thought about the council, about the protests he would face, the accusations of weakness, the endless questions about why he had given so much to one woman who refused to come home. Then he thought about 14 failed rescue missions, about hundreds of deaths in that glowing jungle, about the chance, however small, to change those numbers. Agreed. Nadia studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Send the equipment. I will begin transmitting weekly. But Admiral, she stepped closer, and the stalkers moved with her, flowing like shadows at her back. If anyone breaks this agreement, if anyone threatens my pack, I will disappear into the Thornwood so deep that you will never find me again. And I will take everything I know with me. I understand. She held out her hand. It was scarred, missing 2 fingers calloused from months of survival. Torvin took it anyway. Her grip was iron. Then we have a deal. That night, the supply team unloaded communication equipment at the ridge's edge. Nadia supervised, directing them away from certain areas, warning them about plants that looked harmless but were not. When the shuttle lifted off, she was already calibrating the transmitter. Pallas stayed behind, watching her work. "You could still come back," he said. "Not today, but someday, when you are ready." Nadia paused. For a moment, she looked like the scientist he had known 3 years ago, curious and bright and full of questions. Then Ghost pressed against her side, and the moment passed. "I'm already home, Pallas." She turned back to the transmitter. Her pack gathered around her, settling into their positions for the night. And as Pallas walked back to the shuttle, he understood that he had witnessed something rare. Not a rescue, not a surrender, not a choice, the only kind of choice that mattered. 2 years had passed since the deal on the ridge, in a training facility orbiting Dravonis 4. A young Federation cadet named Sura pressed her face closer to the display screen. The mandatory briefing footage showed a woman in black shell armor, standing in a clearing while massive creatures moved behind her. "The Thornwood is not your enemy," the woman said. Her voice was calm, practiced, the voice of someone who had given this lecture many times. "It is a system. It has rules. Learn the rules, and you can survive. Break them, and you'll die. It is that simple." The footage cut to diagrams. Migration patterns. Territorial boundaries. Safe passages marked in green. Death zones marked in red. The sap of the tendril plant neutralizes airborne spores. Apply it to your breathing equipment every 6 hours. The mineral deposits in the eastern rivers create a paste that blocks bioelectric signals. Coat yourself completely before traveling through hunting grounds. Wren stalkers rest during the 3 hours before dawn. If you must move through their territory, move then. Sura watched, fascinated. Every cadet assigned to the Dravoni system was required to complete this training. They called it the Okonkwo Protocol. The survival rate for emergency situations in the Thornwood had improved by 40% since its introduction. Finally, the woman on screen continued, "Do not run. Running marks you as prey. Walk with purpose. Move with confidence. The jungle respects strength. Show it." The footage ended. Sura's instructor, a scarred Celian veteran, stepped to the front of the room. "That woman," he said, "has spent 2 years living in a place that killed everyone who entered it before her. She sends us reports every week. Species classifications, weather patterns, predator behaviors we never would have learned without her. She has saved more lives from the safety of that jungle than most soldiers save in their entire careers." "Is she still out there?" Sura asked. "With those creatures?" "She is. And if you are very lucky, you will never have to meet her in person. Because if you meet her, it means something has gone very wrong." On the surface of Dravonis 4, at a small outpost built on the eastern ridge, a researcher named Dr. Yusuf said, prepared for his weekly visit to the Treeline. He had been stationed here for 8 months. One of the handful of volunteers who underwent Okonkwo training and agreed to serve as the contact point between Federation science and the woman in the jungle. The job required patience, respect, and an absolute commitment to following her rules, and weapons past the first marker. No sudden movements around the pack. No recordings without permission. He reached the meeting spot as the sun climbed above the canopy. The jungle glowed softly, spores drifting through shafts of golden light. Beautiful, he thought. He still thought that, even after seeing what lived inside, Nadia appeared from between the trees. She looked healthier than she had 2 years ago. Stronger. The armor was better maintained now, reinforced in places, decorated with small bones that clicked when she moved. Her pack followed at a comfortable distance, alert but relaxed. Ghost, the largest of the three, approached Yusuf and sniffed his outstretched hand. A year ago, this would have terrified him. Now it felt almost normal. "You brought the samples?" Nadia asked. "Medical supplies, seeds for the Highland Garden, and the journal articles you requested." Yusuf handed over a sealed container. "The Xenobiology department wants to know if you have made any progress on the mating behavior study. Tell them I have. I will include it in next week's transmission." She opened the container and examined the contents. "Any news from the council?" Counselor Vin is pushing for an expansion of the protected territory. He thinks the eastern ridge should be extended by another 10 kilometers. Nadia almost smiled. Vin, he was the one who wanted to leave me for dead. People change. Some do. She closed the container. I will have observations ready in 3 days. Same time. Same time. She turned to leave, then paused. Ghost had pressed against her side, making the low clicking sound that Yusuf had learned meant contentment. Yusuf, yes, thank you for coming out here, for treating this like real work instead of a curiosity. He nodded. There was nothing else to say. Nadia walked back into the jungle. Her pack fell into step around her, shadows moving through shadows. Within moments, she was gone. That evening, Paleth arrived at the ridge for his quarterly visit. He found Yusuf recording notes and joined him on the observation platform. How is she? Paleth asked. Healthy. Focused. She asked about the protected territory expansion. Paleth looked out at the Thornwood. Somewhere in there, a woman who should have died 2 years ago was building something no one had ever imagined. A bridge between worlds. A partnership between predator and prey. The Admiral asked me to deliver a message, Paleth said. The Council has approved her request. The Eastern Territory will be expanded. No expeditions will be permitted without her approval. Yusuf whistled softly. That is a lot of power to give one person. She has earned it. Paleth remembered the woman who had walked out of the jungle 2 years ago, covered in armor made from monsters, with monsters at her back. She has earned all of it. Deep in the Thornwood, Nadia sat by a small fire. Ghost lay beside her, his massive head resting near her feet. The other two were hunting, moving through the trees with silent efficiency. She thought about the outpost, about the researchers who treated her with respect, about the transmissions that went out every week, carrying knowledge that saved lives. She thought about Earth, about the life she had left behind, about the woman she used to be. That woman was gone. She had died in a shuttle crash in Sector 7 and been reborn in blood and fire and desperate choices. But something new had grown in her place. Something stronger. Something that belonged. Ghost shifted in his sleep, pressing closer for warmth. Nadia rested her hand on his head, feeling the ridges of his skull beneath the tough skin. One human, she said softly, to no one and everyone. 8 months alone, and I did the impossible. The jungle pulsed around her, blue and purple and alive. She smiled. She was home.